another episode of the ADHDads. I'm your host, CJ,
And I'm JJ.
and today we're going to shoot the shit. We're just going to have a little loose base conversation for you. There's no real topic here. We'll just kind of catch up on our personal lives and see where we're at in the journey of daddom. So, how you doing, JJ?
Man, it's been a week of a lot of things. And I say a week because at some point you have to cut off the memories of trying to include everything that's taken place, and you focus on the more immediate. That's a pretty typical thing for me to do, especially with a kiddo who's amazing, who's got ADHD and keeps me on my toes. But also, I had my dog. I was almost thinking I needed to take him to the ER, and I'm going to tell everybody who's listening, you've probably met some great dogs in your life. If you're not a dog person, I'm sorry. Um, but my dog is the best dog ever. he is just he's just freaking
That's what they all
amazing.
say.
Man, when I first met him at our adoption event when I was volunteering in Austin, Texas, I come around the corner and he looks up at me, makes eye contact, and just starts doing a whimper, like, hey, you and I, we need to talk. It was so dang cute. And he does this with everybody, a very gentle approach, walks up, does a little whimper, and says, I want to be friends. Can we be friends? Like he trusts everybody and just is an amazing dog. I always have said, like, he could be a therapy dog. He's so good. But he started crying and he was wincing and all this stuff this last week. And so I was terrified and I was thinking I'd have to take him to the emergency vet. But I ended up getting him in yesterday, and a few $100s later, and being referred to a specialist for maybe gingivitis and stuff, because he had mange on like over like a half of his body, I think 3/4 of his body, when he came to the rescue and was quarantined for a while. And as a result, his teeth grew in malformed, and that's just a result of the mange. And so he has dental issues, and as much as I probably should have done brushing the teeth regularly, I didn't do that. So every now and again we visit the vet, and they say, yeah, he could use a dental cleaning. And the last time we did that, they pulled like 8 of his teeth out.
Oh, man.
He's still got the most important ones, so he can still play fetch and stuff like that and eat okay. But eventually I'm worried that he'll be one of those dogs where the tongue will just kind of hang out all day.
Between the two teeth that are left.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
Yeah, but
those vet visits are no joke, man. Before we got our golden doodle that we have now, my wife and the kids had a dog named Lacey, and she chewed up a rope toy, got it caught in her intestines, and they needed to do emergency surgery.
oof.
$15,000 later, JJ.
Oh,
Fifteen
oof.
thousand dollars later, they said we need to do another surgery and we're not sure if she's going to make it. And we had to
Oof.
make the very, very tough decision of max out another $15,000 credit card or,
Mm.
you know, let the dog go. And we had to let the dog go. So that was hard, man. And especially explaining to little ones.
Yeah. That's a very difficult thing because we call our pets like members of the family, and if that's really a true statement, obviously, like for our kids, we'd do anything. But our dogs, yeah, our pets. I think there's a variation of the term of member of the family when it comes to them, and we would want to do anything. And like Kipper's given me almost 10 years of amazing memories now, and I think, like, gosh, I'd do anything for that dog. And then my pocketbook would tell me, well, I got something to say about that. And that's tough to face. So I feel that hard. And kids involved, they grow attached to that family member. So man, that's a tough
Yeah.
decision. And I feel for those kids in that, buddy.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes good with what we were talking about, a potential topic today, which is transitions, big talks with our kids. And I'm definitely living through a season of this right now. We are
Mm,
selling our house and looking for a rental. And so there's lots of high emotions going on in our house right now. And a lot of, real talks that we have to have with the little ones because we had a moment the other night where our middle one had a moment of panic. She did not want to leave the house and was basically hyperventilating, brother. She was just crying
Mm,
tears and, I love this house so much. I don't want to
mm,
leave it. And oh man, she's our empath for sure. I mean, sometimes I'll pick
yeah.
her up from school and she'll just be crying tears of joy. And Aubrey, what's wrong? I'm just so happy you're here. You know,
Oh
so
man, what a beautiful soul.
yeah, when she feels big, man. So she had to go and give the house a hug. You know, she wouldn't hug the wall, and we convinced her that we would come back to visit and play with some of her friends here. So yeah, man, I what do those transition conversations look like for you? I mean, you just went through a huge transition earlier this year too, where you moved states and changed schools and had to get a new house. And what was that like for you and Cohen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I first off, I just want to acknowledge just the beauty in that, exchange that you have with her, even when she's feeling difficult moments of sadness and fear of what's to come, is she's also telling you like, I have memories that I've created with most often with my loved ones, with my family members here, with my friends, and that's a big deal. A lot of our memories are built up with eventually they live on in our minds of how we construct our visual moments, the smells, the emotions that we had in the moment. We carry them with us, and when we can attach those to a place, and especially the people at that place, it can be hard to say goodbye to that possibility of not creating additional memories that maybe look similar to what we've already had there. So I get that. The awesome thing is kids resilience is another thing to be in awe of when they
Yeah,
make
but
the
in the
transition.
moment where
Yeah, yeah.
those emotions are flying, bud, it doesn't feel
Hmm.
like it. They show those emotions like it's a forever feeling, you know.
Yeah,
But you're
yeah.
right; they do have some great resiliency, but sometimes it is hard as parents to sit through those emotional moments.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And, because you don't want to just kind of tell her like, oh, but all the good things you had here, they're going to happen somewhere else. So don't worry about it. Like that's the last thing you want to do is completely
Yeah,
discard what she's feeling.
right.
The amazing thing is she's already shown you, just how much of a great attachment emotionally she has to the people more than she does the place. Like when you
Mm.
picked her up, she wasn't saying like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here so you can bring me back to that house and then I can hug the house." But she still does attach so many great memories to it with people. So she wanted to give the house a hug, which is damn cute, I got to say.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
telling my parents about that moment earlier, and Caden was eavesdropping, and he thought it was funny, and he ran over to the wall and hugged it himself. So we'll all miss this house. There's been some really great memories here over the last 3 years that we've carved away in the beginning stages of this family unit that we're creating. So it will be really sad to see it go. But I'm also excited for a new start in a new place, you know. And I
Mm,
think I've told you before and our listeners that I grew up the new kid, man. I never went to the same school for more than 3 years was
mm,
my longest stint in high school from freshman to junior year.
mm,
But before that, I moved every year, sometimes twice a year, and had to switch schools. So I feel weirdly comfortable in this transition phase. It feels normal or nostalgic in a way, which I think has really kind of helped ground my family because as everyone is experiencing these really high emotions during this transition period, I've kind of gotten my feet on the ground and been through it a time or two. So, I kind of have a
mm.
little bit more humor and lightheartedness to it. And that really kind of seems to help everybody else.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me because I imagine that's a stage in the process of a transition that you are able to get to sooner because you have experience there. Like the idea of focusing in on the payoff is something that you've had the opportunity to reflect on some memories, right? To say I did have a payoff through those transitions in the past, so I have hope for the future, which maybe hope for the future is before the payoff focus, but there's got to be some hope that you have based on your own experience, and so maybe they're a couple steps before you in that journey, because this is maybe something new, especially for the kids. This is something pretty new for them to experience.
What did those conversations look like with you and Cohen? How did you kind of prep him or get him ready for something that felt less scary for him?
Well, first off, I want to say, there is a pretty big difference between what you're talking about with your situation and what I got to experience with my kiddo, and I'll be able to sum it up pretty quickly. But I had a lot of time to be able to make that transition
Yeah.
happen. At the beginning of our COVID shutdown, which is years ago now. Jeez, listeners, can you believe it's been years since that shutdown happened? And it lasted so dang long. Well, toward the beginning of that, Cohen's mother had asked me if I had considered the idea of moving. And it's funny that she asked me that at the beginning of a COVID shutdown. I was like, well, not right now. Everything's shutting down. I don't think I'm looking to go cross country right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they have laws against that right now. I'm so confused. What's going on? But what she did is she planted this idea in my head, which I probably already had a little bit of that idea in my head also, because we initially moved to Missouri, which is where we moved from. We moved there because of her career. So I had never at one point in my life thought, oh man, eventually I want to end up in Missouri. But I also had that feeling, with Utah. Nothing against you, Utah folks. But I didn't have in my brain this thought like, I want to move to Utah someday. This is where I want to end up. So the idea of a transition was planted in my brain by her early on in COVID. And I knew I had definitely plenty of time to kind of process, what does that look like? What could that mean? So fast forward a couple of years after that, I think, man, that COVID thing lasted a while. She had said that she was looking at jobs. So again, like she had prepped me a while back, and then she said later on that there's a couple of jobs that she's interested in. One was over in Vermont and one was over in Salt Lake City. Not exactly the same area of the states. All I did know was that that's further away from, my home state, her home state as well as Minnesota. And so it didn't look like there was a lot of a support system, regardless of where she might choose, like she would like to move to. I had the luxury of saying no to anything, because when you're divorced and you have a kiddo and you're dealing with custody, the home state, the residential state, essentially somebody has the say of saying no, not moving out. There are exceptions, but this was the case where we both knew that my say was ultimately the deciding factor. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to see, what does it look like for her, because I want to see what it would look like for her happiness, because what does that do? That directly impacts our kiddo. And I can work from anywhere, as in my job is a luxury of also being able to work remote. So I looked into Salt Lake City. I knew certain things about the area, and then I also did not know certain things about like the schools and what the activities look like on the weekends and stuff. So it was still a little bit of a learning opportunity for me to decide, does this make sense, or would I just be miserable? And the big deciding factor for me was schools. There was a great opportunity for a school. So what I started to do was, when it was looking more serious that she could possibly be offered the job, I said, hey, Cohen, we've been here in Columbia all your life. What do you think about this place? What do you love? What do you love about here? And so I could gauge, like, what does that look like if he loves this about this area? What does he love about that area possibly in the future? And he loves the zoo in St. Louis. Well, Salt Lake City has a zoo, so we can make some things work. And then we just kind of talked about it. Oh man, the mountains, they're so gorgeous. Just really kind of slowly building up this idea of excitement in him about the possibilities to come. And then I will tell you, you guys, that one of the big things, like you could speak to this, Colton, is that when kids are younger, they can be, again, using the word resilient. They can be a little bit more resilient with life transitions and changes and stuff. So Cohen hasn't had a lifelong friend yet, up until this point of moving, and he's still getting new friends, even at the end of this school year. So I knew that Cohen's ability to be resilient was fairly strong. And so therefore it was more on me and his mom to decide what does healthy look like for us. I don't know if I've found the perfect answer in terms of a geographic location yet, but I do believe that my son is happy with his parents. And I think that his mom is in a much healthier place, um, emotionally, mentally, because she has moved up in the world of her career and she very much is in the right career. So when she's moved up in that space, that's just like, that's the whole like I go to work every day, but it's more like I go to fun every day. So she's in a great place, and that's an awesome world. I want to have that someday where I'm just like, oh, every single thing I do at work is just the coolest. Be honest, I mean, there's no surprises there. In my job, there's monotony, boring stuff, and I think it's fair to say that without my employer listening and going, oh, he hates the job. No, I'm not saying that at all. I love the job. I love the people, but there's definitely some stuff that's not so exciting. So for me, because I can work remote, I'm finding my happiness being where I'm at with my kiddo, and we're going to go see family in the next month here, so we still get to access them. It's not like we moved across the world. So transition conversation is relatively easy for me.
We're gonna pause right here, JJ, because my little one is crying. I just gotta go
Oh
see
no.
what's going on.
You got it, buddy.
Can you hear me on this microphone here?
Yes,
Or is
sir.
it the computer microphone? Okay.
Yeah, I've been hearing you the whole time.
What's wrong, Bubba? It's not working. You need her code. Okay, here, I'll put it in. There you go, Bubba. You want Roblox? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Night night. We're gonna keep that in the podcast.
Nice.
This is a dad show, guys. This is real life here. It doesn't stop just because you press record.
Yeah. So one thing that I really kind of want to just acknowledge in myself, and I would acknowledge the same in you, and I'd like for you to speak to this, is that when you start to get a good sense of yourself and your values, I believe that life transitions can be much more of something that's doable, um, because you're I don't know, you're able to like take it on and not just see it as another life challenge, like in a bad way, but really a way to apply yourself and apply your values, and and grow stronger as a family unit as a result of maybe some adversity but also some growth through it. Being able to take responsibility for your actions, and not blaming others even when others are involved, but really kind of owning up to your part and what you can do to work through that. That's a strength that I think most people should really try to aspire to. It's something that, again, like through meeting you and other good men who want to be great fathers, like I was able to identify my core values in all of this. And so therefore, when I took that into the idea of moving to a place, sight unseen, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't fearful. There were some external opinions trying to weigh me down on that a little bit, intended or otherwise, that I could respect their perspective, but I didn't have to let that shake where my values had kept me through that.
What were those values? I mean, you had mentioned, creating that safe and wonderful family dynamic for Cohen, and part of that was keeping your co-parent happy. But as you're gearing yourself up for this transition, what questions are you asking yourself, and where are you at with the process now? Despite Cohen and co-parent, how's JJ with the transition?
Well, there are some things that you just kind of you have to shake it off. I don't know. That's not a great answer to that question, but I was paying for a 3-bedroom place in Columbia, Missouri, with a backyard, with a garage, and I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment that's more than twice the rent for this unit, and that doesn't even
Oh
include
yeah.
the parking space and the pet rent. Yeah, my pets owe rent. You know, they're not working. They're still laying over here asleep, by the way. So yeah, they're not working for their rent. So yeah, everything's more expensive. So that was kind of a hard one to swallow. But again, I think the thing is that what I really stood strong with my core values is being present for my kiddo, and living up to having that quality time with him, and being of service to the people I love most is part of what serves myself. I know that sounds kind of strange, but the truth is like, people say take care of yourself first, put your life vest on first, or put your oxygen mask on first, and then take care of the others. And that's true. I do that. But part of putting that oxygen mask on is happiness to me. So if I see that my son is happy, man, does that make me glow inside as well? And then I
Yeah.
know that his mom has a specific place or specific opportunities that are available to her that make it a little bit more challenging in terms of where you end up. And I didn't want that to be something that, she had to work against in order to achieve. I didn't want her to feel like it was some sort of handicap in her life and that she would just have to sacrifice. Not saying I give in to everything, but also just being able to have that conversation and say, you know what, I'm in a good state with my values, with how I approach this, and if that's going to also, the decision to move is also going to affect Cohen in a positive way, I bet that's going to really affect me in a positive way. So
Mm.
I'm money aside, money's one thing, but that's not emotional equity. That's something else. And I'm creating memories every day, regardless of where I'm at with my kiddo, that I can't even put a dollar amount on.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful that you touch on that because it's interesting. We go into these separation divorce scenarios and we think that the compromise of the relationship with that person is over with. You don't have to deal with that person. We're not married anymore. I don't have to think about their well-being anymore. And I think that could be true in some toxic situations, but I heard something poignant today from a relationship expert that was talking about get rid of the idea that a relationship is 50-50. Sometimes you're at a 20 and sometimes your spouse is at an 80 and sometimes you're at a 90 and sometimes she's at a 5, and that's the beauty of a relationship, is being able to recognize that within one another and communicate that when you're at your 20 or you're not at your high percentage rate, and being able to work together and pick up the slack as need be here and there. And there's I think a lot of couples harbor resentment during that process, thinking that it needs to be 50-50 all the time, where I would even argue that it should be 100-100 all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like you should be always looking to put everything into it and to make it work. And I thought that was really beautiful what you said about the obstacle being the way, which is a great book, by the way, Ryan Holiday. If you haven't read that also was pivotal into kind of changing my mindset into what you're talking about. And that's that, I really get my joy from being able to show up for my kids and my wife during these hard times. Where it was a mindset before of, oh, this is hard, I don't want to think about it, and, you know, escape or prolong. But once I really started like, ooh, this is a great opportunity. Yeah, I'm gonna show up here using all these tools that I learned. That started feeling so good, man. And
Mm.
we've been walking through some crucibles here. A couple episodes ago, I talked about Naomi in the hospital with Kawasaki, and my wife's journey with lupus this year. We've had a lot of ups and downs, and in a lot of our dad groups, that's the check-in question: is what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing? What are you doing to take a break from it all? And I'm always kind of confused by that question a little bit. And I do believe that you do need some self care, some self time. If there's something that gives you that joy, what, working out or meditation or whatever, like your thing is, golf, like, and that centers you and grounds you, like kudos to you, man. But I just think, if you can make one of those things that gives you the joy, being showing up during hard times, whoo, buddy, you've got some really beautiful growth and some really legendary connections, that you can go not only with your family but with your friends and your peers, coworkers. I think that we should really implore that presence in every situation. So I
Hmm.
really like that, man. That's awesome to hear you say, and I've been trying to articulate that since we started this episode, and I definitely want the listeners to press rewind and listen to that again, because the stories that we tell ourselves sure are powerful, man. And if we're waking up every day trying to avoid the hard times and telling ourselves that they're hard rather than beautiful moments to learn.
Hmm. Yes, and just like choosing your words does make a big difference. I agree with you so much. Like, I think we've probably all heard the words, when we talk about vacation, we say, "I need an escape." Well,
You
what
need a
about
vacation
watering
from
the
my
seeds?
vacation.
Yeah. What about watering the seeds of your daily life? How do
Yeah,
you feed into that and grow something great with your everyday? Not everybody's going to go to their job every day and just look forward to every single day at work, but is there an opportunity to create something great there so you don't feel like, oh, I've got 2 weeks out of the whole year where I can escape this misery? It's not a good
yeah,
place to be. Also, I've heard the I've heard the saying, it should be like what you were saying earlier about 100%, 100%. It shouldn't be happy wife, happy life. It should be happy spouse, happy house.
hmm, yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah, it's a partnership, right? It's not designed where one person is just simply sacrificing their well-being so everybody else is happy. How do you create service for others while also creating service to yourself? I think that's the big thing, is really, yeah, understanding yourself and getting into that presence of me, and your identity. We're social creatures, right? We are, and to suggest that going off on your own is the path to finding happiness. I would say there's a component where you work on yourself on your own time, yes, but the
yeah.
reason why you work on that on your own time is so you can return to the
And show
everybody
up
else.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah, and show up better
yeah.
for those closest to us. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess I kind of just like threw a whole bunch of crap out there about my life transition. What is all this kind of doing for you? What are you seeing? What are you going through that you need to speak to? And what have you taken along this journey up until this point? I know we talked earlier about, seeing the what could be on the other side of this and being hopeful. Well, what is this transition right now? How are the individuals doing in this time? Aubrey obviously is feeling some emotions. She's showing her gifts of empathy. What's it looking like, buddy?
Well, I want to take a moment too. I just went on this whole rant about making the obstacle your way and telling
Mm.
yourself that it's easy. And though I'm speaking to that, I also want to be real with the listeners here and say it's fucking hard sometimes. Like I fucking fail sometimes, and I don't say the right things all the time, and I get frustrated, and this is an overwhelming process, for me as well. And it's not all sunshines and rainbows in my head and in my heart throughout this process. So there's moments that are hard for me, and I think that support system that I have with my wife has been really great, in calming down. And we're so good about being that 80/20. I just, our energies are just, they ebb and flow in that way, that I think is just such a beautiful thing that has just made me fall in love with this woman. And the parts where she's feeling weak, I can muster up the strength and pull some weight. And the moments that I'm feeling weak, she finds that in herself too. And we just have this unspoken nonverbal communication with that didn't just come naturally. I mean, we really did a lot of intentional conversations and questions about what hard times would look like in times of peace. And I think that those prerequisite conversations to these big crisis moments have really helped ground us. And I think a lot of couples miss that, early on or before something big happens. What are we going to do when this thing happens or when something like this happens? And I think a lot of couples don't think about it or plan or have those conversations until they're in it. And then it's so overwhelming and they feel so ill-equipped, and there's so much of that, what is the other person thinking, doing, saying, what they're, and misunderstandings that, I'm really blessed that I was in these groups and had coaches and therapists to help navigate those conversations before we started going into this, because that's where that nonverbal communication that we have and that connection really came from. So it's hard, and my wife has struggled through this too. She got this house before I came into the picture, and she housed it as a single mother for herself for a long stint, and to be moving out of here and to be looking for stuff in other neighborhoods and having to sacrifice this, that, or the other, whether it be location or size or amenities or costs, has been a process that I feel has taken a lot of curiosity on my part, getting to tailor her expectations to what we can afford or what we're trying to do to minimize our financial costs each month. Because you're talking about the cost in Salt Lake City. This bad boy here behind me is $4,800 a month out here in Southern California, so it's fucking expensive. So we're trying to minimize some costs here and cut that down. But with that comes location, and my wife likes her Bel Air zip code where she works, and her La Crescenta zip code where she lives, and you know so it's just been some curiosity and support with that, rather than saying we can't afford that, or your expectations are too high, or getting mad or frustrated with that. It's really just curiosity of well, what does that look like then? If we're gaining this, what are we having to sacrifice to get that? And I think the conversations are pretty similar with the little ones. I really loved what you said about not minimizing what they're going to miss here, and really starting those conversations about, well, what do you like about here, and how can we bring some of that love and nostalgia and those memories with us to this new environment, into this new experience. So it's been a lot of that here too. What do you love about this place, and what are you looking forward to, and what are you scared about, and we've even talked about spending the summer in our RV and doing some traveling to save up a little bit, and make an adventure out of this whole process. And I'll tell you, man, the kids are more excited with that idea than they are going into a new house, which would be challenging for sure in a small space. But I think also what a great opportunity to have a really connecting summer with these kids as we do this transition, and build some really core stuff as we're going along this process, rather than it just being this like traumatic upheaval and new environments. Let's pepper it with some great summer memories and trips and experiences. So it's not a summer of that's the summer we moved, but it's the summer we did this, that, and then we ended up in a new house and started this new chapter of our life.
Well, that's amazing, buddy. And I must say, sorry if my microphone just switched, so if we
I
need
was
to
gonna say, you
pause.
just you're sounding different.
It, it's funny because the software tells me I can't switch microphones during recording, yet apparently it did it for me anyways. So I don't know what that's all about. If
Oh
it doesn't
yes.
sound good, does it sound okay? Because I can stop and we can start again.
No, it's fine. It's a little tin canny, kind of like our last one that we did with Jeremy Roadruck. I was really upset about. So, but it's all right, man. We'll keep it moving. Again, listeners,
Cool.
this is life. All right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, listen, you can press stop and you can edit all the bullshit out, but why? Let's keep rolling through. So you're fine, bud.
So, I think one of the things that's very common in such a transition is to feel a loss of some sort of self-esteem. How do you show up for your partner when you know that they're experiencing that? Do you try to, butter it up and pretend that, oh, it's not that bad, or do you lean into what the other person is feeling and show support by listening? And what does that look like? Because I mean, never in those moments, I imagine, is that loss of self-esteem on an equal plane. You two are probably experiencing your, like you said, ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and um, yeah, it's been difficult, you know. Sorry, I'm getting some text messages here. Again, life is continuing for us as we go along. Repeat your question to me, JJ. I'm sorry. You got that ADHD brain, so sometimes
That's
you
okay,
gotta
buddy.
repeat information back to me again.
I think the thing is, when there's so many stakeholders in such a big transition in life, each person experiences a little bit of loss of self-esteem, if not a lot, when something big comes your way. It hits you pretty hard. And how do you, with all the tools that you have, or how do you show up? How do you help somebody who's maybe in their ebb and flow different than you, and they're really kind of feeling at a loss, and you're trying to support them through that?
Yeah, yeah, I remember now. Thanks. But I think it's like what you were saying earlier about like what is the story that we're telling ourselves? What is the value here in this? And what are we ultimately trying to accomplish? Because, a house does not make a home, good sir, and that's what we've really been finding throughout this process. And all the stuff that we love about this house doesn't really have to do with the house. It has to do with the home that we've created inside the house. And so I think having those conversations and reminding ourselves, that again, a house does not make a home, and wherever we put our love is where we're going to have a beautiful experience. I think has been really vital to helping the kids through this process, and especially my wife. Where the kids are, it changes their mood on the day with it. Sometimes that's an acceptable answer, and sometimes that ain't good enough. But my wife, again, having those conversations about what does our home look like and not necessarily our house, has been a really grounding uh, conversation for us. But again, not minimizing, what we're all going to miss, and what we're giving up around this too. I think that to validate that and label that is extremely important during this process too, because yeah, we don't want to devalue this experience that we have here with all the great stuff that we have going on, saying, don't worry about it, something better's around the corner, or don't think about it. I don't think that's the right approach. So just being open and patient with everybody's erratic feelings and how they change, and circling back to the story that we're telling ourselves, and the value that we want to put to it.
So yeah, what does that look like? What are the positives to identifying the emotions at the beginning of this experience and, the maybe the shock part of the experience? What do we benefit from, especially as a family unit, stopping and saying, these are the real emotions that we're experiencing in this moment. And then, as we progress and we get to the other side of it, what's the value of kind of reflecting on those emotions you had at the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there was actually a point during this that this kind of came up, and it was when Aubrey had that huge meltdown. And we had spent the day looking at houses together, the whole family, going and doing open houses and stuff. And Maritza was kind of like on the fence about that. Should we include the kids in this process? I feel like it may be a little overwhelming for them. And then when Aubrey came out of her room in the middle of the night, high in her feelings, the first thing out of Maritza's mouth was, "So I knew we shouldn't have took her with us. It's too much for her." And I just gently reminded her. I said, "Babe, it's not our job to protect them from this. It's our job to help them feel their feelings and walk them through it. So, there wasn't much that we could say to Aubrey other than, I know I'm going to miss it too. And it makes me sad as well, sweetie, And sometimes it didn't even take, but we are together, or but we will have this, or but there's this new thing. It just stopped at the, it's okay. And I feel that way too. And we just sat like that for for a moment until she calmed down and was, because she was so worked up, she wouldn't hear the but then there's this, look forward to this, don't think about this, look forward to this. She was too in her feelings for that. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of just sitting with it in that crisis and letting her calm down and letting her know she's not alone, and we all feel it a little bit, and we're all going through it too, and she's not alone in how she's feeling. I think that
Hmm.
that was ultimately valuable during this experience for us.
Hmm.
And
So
what about
instead
you?
of,
Same question to you. What did that look like in moments of Cohen maybe panicking or feeling scared or anxiety about this process?
hmm, yeah, I mean, it all goes back to, well, I was going to respond to you, like you used the word but, and that's kind of a rejection of, our kids' feelings or our partner's feelings is you're feeling that, but this is going to happen, which is, it's an attempt to just throw something on that and then, look the other way. But then you also, affirmation and sitting in those emotions and stuff and really giving them, the full right and license to feel those feelings because as we said before, feelings are 100% real. We don't make those up. They happen, whether we have full control over them or not, but understanding them, that's the key. And when we as parents show up to allow for that to be a real thing and say, oh, that is really hard, or yes, I understand what you're feeling. That yes is great affirmation, and that can help us transition much greater than saying like, but this one's gonna have candy every day, you know.
Yeah.
With Cohen, buddy, we, as a co-parent, I think the best example I could give to all the the co-parents out there is that this happened just this last weekend actually, and it's happened many times where when he's with me and his mom has said the same thing for when he's with her, he'll miss the other parent, and I had a different parent dynamic in, growing up. Um, my parents were never, one house than this house and stuff. I can only imagine how difficult that is for Cohen. But just suggesting to him, like that is really hard. I know it's really hard because I have to say goodbye to him every so many days.
Yeah.
So I don't get to see him either. I miss him greatly.
Guy, that poor guy, he's going through a big life transition every week, huh? Twice a week.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's no love and comfort sometimes like that of the mother that birthed you, that nursed you, that held you in her arms when you were just born and did that for a full year of life before you could actually walk and choose what you wanted to walk to. That's just something that I'm so glad that he treasures. His mom gives him the love that I can't give him in the same way, and that's okay because as a father I had a natural instinct of love about my son when he was born as well. And with that I can fully empathize with him in my own way. And what does that mean? It means I don't experience the same thing he does, but I experience those emotions as well because I truly care for his heart and his well-being, and I miss him just as much as he misses me. The benefit of this all is that we also realize that we are giving him the love that he needs from us, the attachment he desires to have with us because he misses us when he's not with us. That's a beautiful gift, as odd as it sounds. So when he says to me, I want to call mom or I really need mom, and he'll sometimes do that at the end of the day when he's more in his emotions. The other night I said, you know, tonight we're not going to call mom. We need to get our bedtime routine going, and we need to get to bed so we can get up for tomorrow. But I totally understand where you're coming from. I know you want to talk to mom because you're feeling these feelings, buddy, and that's really hard. Um, but that also gave me the opportunity to show him, I understand you. I feel your pain. And I didn't want to, cut off opportunities for him to connect with his mom. I just recognized in that moment there was also an opportunity to connect with his emotions, connect with him. So by the end of that conversation, he said, "You know what? I don't need to I don't need to call mom. This has been
Mm.
really great." And he gave me a
Wow.
hug and a kiss. And yeah, and again, like I wanna make it very clear that his access to his mom is available all the time. But this was an opportunity at Dad's house to also kind of further explore that. And through exploring that, we also got a connection between the two of us as well. So I knew when he was going to go to his mom's, I could celebrate the fact that he was looking forward to that side of things too, the love that she gives to him. So I'm not even sure what exactly your question was anymore on that, but essentially, yes, the big thing is saying yes to what you're saying is affirming, where the children are at in that and helping them along the way. The biggest way we can serve them in the process of those scared feelings is actually saying, yes, those are real scared feelings, and not
Yeah.
try to suggest you shouldn't be feeling that because of this. You're feeling that, but this. Instead really embrace that.
Yeah, I think that there's a miss that we as humans put into feeling these negative emotions, and just again, you want to escape it, you don't want to feel it. Where we were talking about the Book of Joy a few episodes ago too, and how that book looks at grief and loss and anger and sadness is that that feeling is there because something once beautiful and love filled was there to precede it. And the absence of that is what makes you feel sad, angry, you know. So instead of trying to avoid that negative feeling or that absence, realizing that we're only feeling that because there was once something beautiful there that is now missing. And if we can think back to the beautiful experience of it and what we've learned and gained through that, rather than the negative wanting to escape the feeling, I think that we would really serve ourselves and our kids so much better, because like you said, we don't have to fix our kids' emotions. In fact, I think that we're doing a disservice if we do that. Instead, why don't we dig into that and ask why those feelings are there, and what's missing from that, and what love is can be filled in that empty space. So I think that was really beautiful, and yeah, I think you're right. We just need to just kind of just let it happen, and love will come.
What you said there is just it really hits me in the greatest of places because I think I've heard the saying and I've been guilty of it in the past is I shouldn't be feeling this. Well, why shouldn't you be feeling it? It sounds like your body's and your heart's telling you something. Why shouldn't you be feeling it? And then I think about the very famous scene in League of Their Own. There's no crying in baseball. Sure there is. There's crying everywhere. When the feelings happen, they happen. Do I, suck it up and then be inauthentic to myself? Or do I actually let that process play out? We obviously if we walk through every day and we're crying, at every moment, we probably need to, explore that and work through it so we can handle certain things in a certain way and have a certain level of competency with some things. But that's an effort to understand yourself. That's not an effort to just push it away, to ignore it, to pretend it doesn't exist. So yeah, man, I feel that entirely what you said.
Yeah, you said something earlier too that sparked some kind of realization for me too about. Sorry, a little bit of indigestion there. That gosh, that what I really lacked as a kid, the new kid growing up as the new kid, was that stability. Man, I wanted just the one house that I grew up in, and I wanted to go to the same school with my same group of friends. I feel like I missed that and I wanted that. And every school or town that I went to was full of all these groups that of friends that had come up with each other, lived around the corner from one another, and had this relationship and bond. And I was constantly having to reinvent myself and go try to make friends. And sometimes you were the cool kid, and sometimes you were bullied, and sometimes you were the bully. And it was just a confusing experience, trying to fit in over and over again. And that's something that our kids have vocalized. What they're going to miss is that stability. I've known all my friends my whole life. I've gone to school with them, and what does that mean? And though they'll still be going to the same school, no matter where we move, they go to the school where my wife teaches, so they have scholarships there, and we'll be there for at least until their junior high days, and then we'll be dealing with another life transition of going from private school to public school and what that looks like in a new neighborhood. And I'm sure there'll be all sorts of different social dynamics and learning curves and structures to it all. But that's something that I feel at a loss of with how to help my kids or connect to them during this. Is that's something that I yearned for and wanted, and it's something that they have that they're losing. So there's not much that I can say other than just listening to them and hearing them and about that journey.
Yeah, the saying, it is what it is. Well, that needs to be paired with I am who I am. And how do you help your children recognize who they are?
Mm,
You let them speak to this. Like, this is really hard. It is really hard. I don't have all the answers, but yes, it's really hard, and I want to be there for you to work through this and to explore what that's going to look like, and how can we help you, and I feel your pain, just really saying the I am in this. Everybody has a thought and a reaction to it, and should be allowed that. It doesn't mean, that everybody's going to get exactly what they want. And I suppose that's why the it is what it is saying, is so true at times. But it shouldn't mean that, because we know a certain path we're taking, we should ignore the human in this, the person who is feeling all this feeling in it. I mean, man, I'm sure there's a lot of questions that immediately come to mind for a kid who maybe just needs to understand the answers a little bit, and that's why the questions are there. But yeah, I get that. Like, I'm moving 3 miles away. Well, 3 miles to a kid is a massive distance,
yeah,
and adults are like, well, get in the car, you're there in like 3 minutes. What's the big deal, But to a kid, I remember Colton, when I was like 2.5, 3 years old, I walked 2 blocks away from my house and I thought I was in another country. It's a big deal. So exploring that and understanding that is great. The last thing we should do, not I shouldn't say the last thing, but one of the things that I think parents tend to do is they kind of laugh it off sometimes.
yeah,
As long as we kind of circle back around to that and say, you know what, our kids are mature in their questions. They might they might focus on some of the little
mm,
things that we as adults don't focus on anymore,
yeah,
but they're still real. That's still a real thing to address.
yeah. And I
Every
think it's
question
our
should have.
job as parents to really dig deeper into those questions, because yeah, our kids don't have the vocabulary to express themselves in a way that may resonate with us. So I think it's really our job to take a step back and instead of trying to get through the conversation or laugh it off, like you say, we help give them the tools, the words, the verbiage to identify and express that better.
So I'm gonna throw a question kind of back toward the beginning of the process of
Oh
transition.
man, I love when we do full circles.
Well, this is a step in the process question, but you know, we just kind of talked about, like, taking a pause and taking a moment and to acknowledge. So that sounds to me like don't be in a rush. What about when you're in a rush? How do you not be in a rush when you're in a rush?
Well, I know that there's a saying that you've heard recently through Larry's podcast, The Dad Edge: "Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast." That's something that I've been playing in my head too. And oftentimes we're in crisis, our minds are going at full throttle, we're in high gear, we're trying to tackle 50 problems at once and everything feels chaotic and fast. But when we can really pause and slow things down, our thinking and our actions become smoother. And when you start operating on more smoothly, things you can operate more quickly, and you can analyze and take care of those obstacles that are coming in your way. So, though I know the initial instinct when you get that testosterone rush, and all those chemicals are going in your body, and that fight or flight mechanism gets turned on, it's really easy to just kind of spiral down the speed diarrhea mouth of advice and what we want to do to fix it. But there's such value there in really slowing down, getting all the information, thinking about all of the possibilities, and using the best tool for that job at hand. So yeah, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's something that I try to live by in these chaotic moments, and it's helped
Mm,
me tremendously.
yeah. And I've seen that in your family, as you've talked about that throughout this hour, is that the transition was prepared for long before the transition was made, or made itself known in your lives. You've gotten in the 80-20 sometimes, you've gotten in the 100-100 sometimes. You've put in that effort to be present for the family in, those everyday emergencies, or, what a kiddo sees as an emergency, or just a little struggle with a scraped up knee or a scraped up friendship. Um, Being there then helps you when something smacks you in the face, because you have an ability to not only just not necessarily dodge it, but you have the ability to weather it. And that's the biggest part of it, is relationship. You know, like I said earlier, the money component, the financial component of it is not the equity that I really care about.
Man, what a great conversation for when we pressed record and we didn't know where we were going to go with this. Man, I thought this was pretty valuable. I don't know if our listeners got anything from it, but I sure as heck did. So this was valuable to me. Thank you, bud.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I think one of the things the listeners got out of it that they weren't anticipating was random audio quality issues. But hey, guys, eventually we're going to be having amazing studios as you fund our show. And it'll be fantastic all the time. But yeah, for now we're making it work through transitions in our lives, and it's good.
Well, so, good thing you brought that up because I wanted to pitch an idea to our listeners and you for the first time. So,
Oh, here we
so
go.
we didn't plan this, but I was thinking one thing that I would love to do with our listeners is to maybe create, every other week or so often, a Facebook Live event where we can get on with some of our listeners and just kind of chat about what this dad thing looks like, and we can answer some questions and really dive into some parenting stuff and tactics and hardships and some vulnerability. I would love to hear from our listeners and what they're going through, and you know, uh, you guys sharing your journey helps us. So this is a selfish endeavor on our part to learn and grow as well. But we would love to hear your stories, and I would love to help you guys grow within your families too. And I know JJ does. So, if that's something that you guys would be interested in as fans of the show, please, drop a comment in the comment section here, or send us an email. You can go to the ADHDads.com. You can subscribe to our email list there, and we've got all of our contact info. Email at contact at the ADHDads.com, and please, I want to hear from you guys. So I think that would be a really fun endeavor to start up here, a transition, if you will, for the ADHD dads to bring it home.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, buddy. I really appreciate that thought. I would never consider myself the expert in all things. And a great friend of mine said just this week that if you can imagine one person who's a master at his craft working at something, if you were to take instead a group of 8 people who are still working toward mastery, and put them together working toward the same goal, the chances are the efficiency would come with the group. So there is a lot of great power in getting together and learning from each other. So I love that idea.
Yeah, JJ and I are by no means experts here in marriage, raising kids, or becoming badass men. But, again, what we're trying to really create with this podcast and this process is a strong tribe of, of like-minded men that want to go on this journey lifelong together and never stop learning and never stop being better for the ones that are closest to us and most important to us. So we can't do that alone, guys. We do need you and your experiences and your input here. So again, this is a selfish ask on our part here to come join us here, so that we can all kind of create something wonderful and beautiful together. Because it takes a village to raise these little ones here. So nobody can do it alone. So if you guys got value out of today's podcast, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that. And we really appreciate your support. So until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm JJ.
And this has been the ADHDads.